Just remember, no slamming or cursing.
What?
Whatever.
No,
This is the internet. You can do what you want.
Oh, Jesus. Did you have to do that in my face?
Don't break anything.
That was loud. That's the sexiest bottle opener we can do. We're filming and shit.
That's the sexiest?
The bottle opener we can muster.
Yeah, we got.
Well, it's not about the bottle opener.
What
Won't you do me a favor? Won't you turn the
Oh,
bottles
yes.
so that they face the camera?
Yes, we can do that. Boom.
Is this American?
America.
Yeah.
Doesn't look American.
I should have probably done a bit of research before.
On True Blood. Do you remember watch that show, True Blood, about the vampires?
I don't think I've ever watched
True
it.
Blood.
Wasn't that Blue Bloods?
No, True
No,
Blood.
There's Blue
It's the one about the vampires. I'm pretty sure.
Isn't there a lot of sex in True Blood?
There was a lot of sex.
Vampire sex.
Yeah, vampire sex. And they were drinking. They referenced this raging bitch quite a lot. I think it was that
True Blood.
True Blood.
They're
It wasn't
making a
great.
series.
It's like a
I
Twilight
think so.
thing.
Yeah, it was.
It was Twilight, but for adults.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, Twilight, but
With
not sucking.
heavy.
No, it wasn't
Well,
great.
There was a
but-
lot of sucking though.
Well, vampires apparently like
What is
the
that
sex
movie?
is amazing.
You
Apparently.
should have just
Even
said
though
that.
they're like cold and dead.
You know, you
Like
seem quite clued up on the subject.
Cole's got
Lizzie
a dark
watched-
side to him that I don't think he really
From
lets
Dusk Till
everyone
Dawn.
see.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
That
That was good. I actually watched it the
freaked
other
me
day.
out when the thing
We got pussy! Yellow pussy, red pussy! It's like the best. It's such a good movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is hashtag beer time, believe it or not. Welcome to another episode. I am sitting with some good friends. You've known them for a while now. They are the
reason your
stallions.
ratings are
The
going up.
stallions of the beer world, the Cart Horse Homebrewers Club. We minus one gents, Mr. Greg. He said he's going to be joining us shortly. He's just doing some dad duties. But we've got Tony, Ross, and Carl, and then we've got what's the female of a horse again?
Filly.
A filly.
Filly.
Is it a filly?
A filly.
Yeah.
A mare.
A mare, a mare!
What's a filly?
What's a filly? Is a baba.
Oh.
We'll call you Phil anyway.
This is Filly.
A mare, you're right. Sorry, how did we
Nikki,
get wrong?
welcome to hashtag beer time. You are the better half of Ross.
Yes, I am.
And today is a special day. It's a special recording. It's always a special recording, but today is young Ross's birthday.
Yes, it is.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ross.
Hey.
And I always thought that Ross was the filly of the group.
Whoa.
I just found out today that I'm
Yeah.
the filly of the
Yeah.
group.
By what, 2 months? 3 months.
3-4 months.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. Okay.
So,
Jeez, you're really reaching on it.
But isn't that
Yeah, I was like, I'm 37 and a half.
Whoa. I'm more than you.
so? But I'm beginning to see why I am in the position that I am, because Greg's the captain, but I'm the guy who brews all the beer. I can see there's a bit of a hierarchy thing going on there.
Yeah, which is true.
Although Greg calls you captain.
Maybe
He
that's-
calls everyone captain.
He does call everyone captain. Guys, we've got a bit of a theme today. We've got 4 beers from a brewery in the States. Carl, won't you
Where are they from?
read? Actually,
Yes. Wait.
like I said before we started recording,
Oh,
I
the first one
probably,
is 7%.
probably should have done some research. But this is
Flying Dog.
Flying Dog,
Frederick MD. What does that mean? Frederick MD?
Michigan.
Maybe.
What?
Frederick.
Pass the bottle here.
Frederick. Brewed by Flying Dog Frederick MD, medical doctor.
So
Or
it's
Frederick
quite a common
Deaf.
it's quite a common label. You will definitely notice it, especially if you're American. But if you're South African, you may have seen a lot of their artwork. It's the same artist as it's just said I was going to say Hemingway, but it's not Hemingway.
Hemingway.
Hunter S. Thompson.
Hunter S. Thompson, the
Yeah,
guy who
I
did
can
all the
see.
artwork
Really?
for his movies.
So they got him to do all their labels.
Oh, I mean, it looks like
Yeah.
an acid trip.
Feel like I've
I
seen
know,
this.
I know, that's got some
It's
Salvador
crazy
Dali-esque vibe going on there. Beautiful label though, to be
And then
honest.
you got nice texture.
Where did you get these? Troy?
So I got these from a friend who lives in Washington, and
It's
said-
Frederick and
and said, "Do you want some beer?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So he bought me 4 of these. Disclaimer:
Oh, don't tell they're
Oh,
old
here
now.
we go.
Don't tell me they're old. They're like 7 years old and.
they're just a little bit past the expiry date.
Troy.
Oh,
Always
like-
something, eh?
I read.
Hashtag
I
old
said
beer
this.
time.
I
It's
said
supposed
this.
to be called.
I said this on my show last time. You know how the Americans switch the month and the days around.
Yes.
And I thought, we've got lots of time.
I'm pretty sure they're fine.
We've got lots of time. And then I had to reread it, and I was like, oh, no, that's not good.
No, that's fine.
The
But-
thing about these beers, they all
But-
last long.
They're all high alcohol.
I
so,
do think,
good.
we'll still taste some good beers. So, Carl, I asked you to arrange them
I
in
did.
a specific
That
order.
was the first one.
Is
So
this
we,
the first one?
yeah.
The Blood Orange Ale, ale brewed with blood orange puree and natural flavoring.
Do you want me to do a run through the whole thing or just as we
No,
go?
we'll just go as we
Okay,
go.
cool. Let's just keep
these
it
might,
loose.
it might.
What is the percentage?
Whoa.
of that?
Whoa, that's got
7.
a nice.
7.
Yeah.
So we're kicking it off in style with some.
Look at that cup. Look at that goblet.
Yes, it's a
Happy
goblet of-
birthday, Ross.
on my birthday goblet.
That's how it's going to be done by the end of this.
I'm
I think I've had this one before.
Maybe
I've
have
had.
That's the thing.
I'm sure we've had this
Yeah.
before. Well, I've had one of these. I know that much.
I must actually say something for Greg, eh?
It's got a bit of a.
In fact, Ross,
Oxidation.
don't you mind sharing with your lovely lady? 'Cause
I'm just going to grab some.
I know I've seen the label somewhere.
I don't know.
Yeah, this seems like something I've potentially come across.
So you said orange puree. What?
Don't forget to do the sneak up on the nose. Yeah,
Ah,
Troy's
okay.
spoken about this before.
The sneak.
So Ross,
You've gotta do
you
the sneak.
have you been incorporating the sneak up technique for
I
sniffing
have,
beer?
and if you've
Has
never
it
heard of
worked?
the sneak, it does. I mean, I think it kind of lends itself to what you were saying about with wine tasting. The first sniff you do, which is your nose in the glass, sniff it, and then
Sure.
you swirl it around and
Sure.
then smell it again, and that does something different. So I think it changes the nose profile. But I think when you sneak up onto the glass, you're just getting the edge or a different kind of part of where the aroma, where the scents are coming from. So maybe that's what it has to do. But it's still fun though, because you're kind of like, hey beer, I'm coming for you. There you come.
What's that?
Gotta confuse the man to, yeah.
I get like a 7-month-old.
Yeah, it's
over
4 days
expiry
past its expiry. I mean, it's like
It doesn't-
orange
doesn't-
pithy.
It's not a super pungent nose though. I don't think.
But it does have a bit of a citrusy tart
Ooh, it tastes good.
pith.
It's pithy for me. It's orange pithy.
I need a bit.
You know what? I just had the rose.
Oh yeah,
Darling.
the darling. Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I
This
find
is really
it's
good.
very similar, the smell.
Really? So you just say that again? You had the darling
The darling
Pearl
rose,
rose.
something. Rose?
pearl rolls.
Pearl
yes.
rose,
Oh,
yeah.
that's the pale ale, I think.
Yes.
The
It's a delicious
grapefruit pale ale. This is really good. Really good.
Not bad for a beer that's been sitting in T-Bone's fridge for a few months.
So
And it doesn't taste like 7% at all.
No, which is quite far.
How have you arranged these beers, by the way?
No idea.
Color.
What colour?
I can't really see.
Colors of the rainbow.
That was the orange one, Belgian IPA Imperial.
So I think we should go for the IPA next,
Oh.
then the
But I
Belgian.
thought we were quite following orange with candy, you know.
Well,
There
I'm
was-
just
there was
looking.
a
I'm
little
also
bit of
looking at
a-
the alcohol on the back there.
Oh, is it?
It's these. I mean, these are all American IPAs. These are all 7%,
Yeah.
and we've often chatted about this before, and this is just the standard for America. 7%,
7%.
7.5% ABV for an IPA. That is what you should expect.
Really?
And
Oh, that's the norm, right?
And it's just, I mean, when you look at our versions of an Imperial IPA, which is the CBC Imperial, what's it?
Careful good hops.
Careful Good Hops.
Even that, but that's only 7 point.
So that's
No,
7 or
that
8
is
or
7,
something,
8,
but it's
which should be more.
it should be way more. But
Yeah.
when people drink that, oh
It's
wow,
too
this
much,
is
yeah. And it
incredible.
comes in a small bottle.
I can't drink too much of this, but I mean, I'm just trying to understand why it is. Why we're still so far behind in terms of the alcohol range.
Okay, but what's the
I-
Go-
take,
there we go.
take weather.
Paul's about to ask
For
a
the
question.
people
Take weather out of it. Take
Okay.
the climate out of it.
Sure. Let's not worry about the climate. What's the benefit of it being high alcohol? You're a brewer. I don't understand. So what's the benefit? Why do they make them higher? Does it make for a better beer, or more fuller beer, or more full flavored beer, or is it just being American and going, we
I
want
think so.
a high alcohol beer? There must be a reason.
I think also, I've just thought of it now. I think South Africa with their tax laws, the
Oh, you do?
the
Yeah.
excise tax, you
Yeah.
obviously pay more excise tax the higher alcohol goes.
Mm.
I think in the States there are a lot of leeways, or in terms of little tax cuts.
Which could you
that,
make
that
this?
difference? government that different states give to different different size of brewers. So I
But
think
in terms of the
maybe
brewing
they
process,
if they make a beer up to 10%, it's the same as if they make a 4% alcohol.
But I mean, surely you're cutting into like your margin then, because I want you to drink 6 of these if it's my brewery, and if you drink 6-7% of this, like you're fucking going nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you, that's why Castle Light is the biggest selling beer in South Africa.
But going back to your question, and I'll ask you. Now I'm going further back.
You can go
To get the
far
alcohol
back
out
as
of
to the
the
Bronze
beer. No, wait,
Age
to
or
get
the-
the alcohol out of the beer,
Yes.
in the process, how do you do that?
how do you get the how do you increase the
How
alcohol?
do you increase the alcohol?
It's all got to do with your yeast converting the
more
The
sugars
amount of sugar
Okay.
into the ethanol and the CO2. So
But does that change the flavor?
Well, you get a bigger beer.
you can do stuff that doesn't change flavor, like table sugar. So if let's say we had to make a beer, and I have done it when you guys haven't been looking. I kind of feel like the guy from Hangover, who spikes the drinks. But if you do want to bump your alcohol up by, let's say, a percentage, and you don't want to change your flavor, you just put in some table sugar.
Ah.
But I think it's like what you were saying. Whether you make a 7% or a 10%, does it change the way it tastes?
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna take a stab in the dark, but the way I'd imagine they would make these beers, I think it'd be silly if they just added table sugar to all their ingredients.
Just
So
to bump the
I
alcohol.
would
I think
imagine.
they use more ingredients.
Yes,
more
I think it
ingredients.
is a higher variety of malt. They might put in some other adjuncts or sugar adjuncts, but
it could also
definitely not corn, or definitely not
No.
rice.
But could you make as flavorful a beer with half the ingredients? Probably not.
I don't know,
as flavorful or as high in
Like
alcohol?
as flavorful
but,
as
but
this
to
beer
me,
with
these
half
beers are
of
quite
those
dry and sessionable tasting, because then if South Africans or South African brewers had to make a 7 or 8% beer, it's heavy,
ingredients. Yeah.
and these are, I think,
But Belgium have been
Dry
doing it
and
for years.
easy.
I mean, like a Duval is what, 9%?
Yeah.
yeah, but Belgians they're on another field, because I mean that you have one of their beers. I mean, if I have one of their beers, that's I'm tickets.
But that's like the norm there. It's like 9%. It's like, oh, we're gonna just have an easy blonde, you know? It's crazy.
Everyone loves an easy blonde, eh?
So to come back to your question, Carl, I'm a bit stumped in terms of, minus this climate that we live in. Like I'm a bit not too clued up in terms of why there is such a high percent, or why there's that.
Why they do it? Yeah.
Why an American style IPA is so high.
I can I jump in?
Go ahead.
In my head, I think maybe that the process of creating the beer, the high alcohol is just a byproduct of it. So in order for them, maybe they just know that they're going to create a big beer, big being in, having a lot of alcohol. But the process in getting there is a little bit more complex maybe, or they're using certain yeasts and different malts, so that in order to get to the style of beer that they want, the alcohol that's over and well, the alcohol percentage is just a result of them going that route. You know what I mean? As opposed to them actually trying, because you might try, like you could take Castle Light and do exactly the same process but have a low alcohol as one of these beers, but it's not going to taste the same.
Maybe we're missing out on the most obvious points. And
America.
It's that the fact that it's an imperial pale ale. Sorry, an Indian pale ale. And we all know the story is that the reason why it's an Indian pale ale is because of the high alcohol and increased hop bitterness, which made it safer to drink on those longer voyages. So legend has it. So maybe we're comparing today's hoppy, flavorful aroma IPAs, and we're forgetting about why they actually are high in alcohol. So maybe that came from it, because I'm just trying to think after Prohibition and when they started making beers again, maybe the IPA wasn't the IPA that it is today.
Look,
It's only recently in the last 20, 30 years have the Americans really pushed this hop bomb in terms of aroma on your nose, in terms of what you're going to get. So maybe that's the answer. Maybe an IPA back 30 years ago was cool. I know this is going to be high in alcohol, and it's going to be bitter, and that's just
Look, I
that's
think
what you
also-
come to expect.
I do think that they've Americanized things. Like in our book, Beer, Food, Fire, which is in all good bookstores.
Oh, you've written a book?
I wrote a book.
Oh, okay,
I
lovely.
wrote it.
Can I order that online?
You can. I think it's
Where
on
could we
Takealot.
order that
Takealot.com.
Wow.
That's takealot.com.
You can make a pre-book for book number 2.
I wrote a section on styles and how styles have kind of evolved over time and when the craft beer boom, like a lot of styles are very old and they all come from Europe. All beer styles come from Europe except for the new sort of stuff that's developed now. And when the craft beer boom happened, America just did what they do best and they took what existed and they Americanized it. So everything became bigger. It was like more malt, more hops, higher alcohol. And that, I think at some point just became their norm. Like that, when Sierra Nevada was bringing out beers, whatever, the 80s, the beers were big. And everybody obviously latched onto it and it became their normal. So I think they've just kind of run with it. And if we were living in the States for 2 years and we're drinking 7% beers, it probably wouldn't even be, if you got one that was 6, you'd be like, what is this? 6% beer? I think it's one of those things. It just becomes the norm. And they Americanized it, and that's what they do. We doubled it.
It's interesting why that happened to America and not South Africa. Like, I mean, the IPAs had to come around the Cape of Good Hope. So I wonder why IPAs didn't sit here.
But we never
And
had
why
that.
there wasn't that bitter...
Yeah,
I'm sure back in the day, maybe 100 years ago,
You think so?
when old Charles Glass was starting out and competing, maybe he's the lucky one, the lucky craft brewer who started, and now he's the only one who's left. Well, I say the only one, but because America, yes, it is culturally diverse and it does have snow and hot conditions, but I think it's not that too different in terms of South Africa and its climates. A lot of the people say, "Oh, we're too hot, so we're not going to have."
I don't buy that whole climate thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a load
Yeah,
of bollocks. It
that's
sounds
a lot
like
of
it sounds like someone said that once, and now everyone's latched onto that.
Yeah.
Like it's hot here, it's cold here. It's hot everywhere, it's cold here. Like I don't think that depends.
What you want to drink at
It's-
that time.
I think
Could
it's
be anything.
what becomes popular, what becomes marketed really well is what becomes popular. I mean, if you look at, we had the 10 lagers. You identified with one of the lagers. You didn't identify because if you did a blind tasting now, there's very few people who can pick out which lager is which. It's very, very tough. I mean, you're a judge and it's tough for you. But I identified with Vintuk because I liked Vintuk and I liked what their ad said. So I was like, I'm a Vintuk guy.
Yeah, nothing to
And
do with climate.
It's got nothing to do with climate. It's just because I thought the advertising was good and I used to work in advertising and there was certain people like Charles Glass. My dad's he was a Black Label guy. Always. He was a Castle guy for years and then Black Label. And Black Label was always like, oh, it's the 5.5% one. It's like the higher one, the one you want to get fucked.
Get drunk
I think
tonight.
I don't know. I think it's, we all like to think we're not affected by advertising, but you are. And we had 10 lagers being advertised. You were a Pilsner guy. Ooh, you had a Pilsner.
Yeah.
Taste the Hansa next to a Castle and tell me this.
You've touched on two things there. I'm going to come back to
I'm
how-
rambling.
how-
I'm
how-
rambling.
no,
That
no, no.
7% is it's so high, America.
how,
2 sips.
how we think we're not affected, but we don't have to talk about it too much, but I just watched a movie called The Great Hack
Yes, I
on
watched.
Netflix.
I fell asleep,
and
but I
it
watched.
says how we think we're not influenced by adverts that we see. And you kind of think, I'm not. I'm smart
I
enough
make
to know.
my own choices.
Yeah. Oh, look what I just bought.
Yeah.
So that's, I don't know why I'm giving a shout out to go watch something on Netflix. Thank you, Netflix, for maybe sponsoring this podcast.
Don't you have a documentary? It would be amazing on Netflix.
Jeepers, now we're talking. What I did want to say is that I judged the lagers for this year's powwow. I judged it with Rory from Aga and Anya from Hey Joe. And it was the hardest judging session I've
It's
ever done.
hard, man.
Because all those lagers are so similar in terms of style,
Yeah.
and to try and pick up the difference.
You can't
Subtleties,
after
it's-
4. You can't taste
Yeah.
anything anymore. You just
So I actually told the organizers because they did a double round of judging. The second round of judging, I said to them, just reverse the order of the beers that we got, so to see if there was any difference.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But yeah, like to your point, judging lagers is extremely difficult. Let's move on to our second beer.
Jeez, I
because
feel like we nailed the content there. Like,
Yeah.
we're 1 beer in and that
Nice.
was fire. Someone.
Is that another 7?
Yeah, it's this one.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh,
We
oh,
jumped in the
yeah.
gun. Yeah.
Okay, wait, what is this one?
Oh, it's this the snake dog.
The snake dog.
The one is snake, the other a dog. Snake dog tonight
On beer
on
time.
hashtag beer time. Yeah, this is an India Pale Ale, crazy fucking label. Again, it's called Snake Dog, and it's this weird ass dog with a snake on its back. No, it's not even. I don't even know what is going on there. How do you explain it? That's it. Yeah, it's a mixture of a snake and a dog on a red label.
The snake dog.
You're gonna get either one.
Yeah.
Rolf Stedingham.
Rolf Stedman.
Is that the artist?
I think that sounds familiar.
Possible.
I'm going to say yes.
So this is just a normal IPA.
Rolf.
Oh, that was
The
nice.
normal IPA sits in at 7.1%.
Boom.
Pretty quite
I
strong.
really enjoyed this one. Sure, I'd buy
Ask a
it.
question, Nikki.
Okay, I have a question. But don't you think it's like similar to wine, where there's certain styles that become popular at certain times? You know, like Sauvignon Blanc, people started drinking more Chardonnays, more Chardonnays now. And like with the red wines, it's always been Shiraz, but now Grenaches are becoming more kind of popular. So, like, is beer very similar in where styles become
Just
more
save some for
popular?
Greg.
I think so.
I think so, yeah, definitely.
It's all like, what's everyone drinking?
Everything
This
goes
is
through
cool.
trends and whatever's coming and going, and I think so. I mean, we've seen a lot of styles come and go that never really stick. Remember the white IPA that just went nowhere. Black IPA also was really good. That just fizzled out.
I'd love it to come back.
I love
Black IPA.
the who did a really good one. I think the Devil Speak did a very good one. But certain ones stick. It's just one of those things. Like also it depends on what's happening overseas. Like Brewdog did Albus Juice, which is a grapefruit IPA.
Yeah,
And as soon as that came out, everybody was like, grapefruit IPA. That's a grapefruit IPA.
Yeah, and then there was that whole sour beer trend.
Yeah, so I think it just depends. People get bored
Do
easy.
you think the new trend of these? It hasn't even hit South Africa. These seltzers. These,
the hard seltzer.
It's almost like
What's
a
up with that?
flavored water.
Yeah.
That's,
But it's a beer.
it's not like it hasn't been around.
No, it's
just
seltzer is soda water, isn't it?
yeah. I'm 72% sure,
I'm
but
pretty sure
it's
it is.
it's a flavored water. Like
I watched
for
a
example,
documentary about these
a
seltzer men.
hoppy water or
Yeah,
a sweet malty water, or maybe even a strawberry or.
Rogue
It's
does a
essentially
hoppy water.
it's essentially like an alco pop.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in a beer.
It's-
challenge.
No, it's in a
like
can.
it's
A lot
like
of them come in a can.
It's not a beer. It's like
So if I bought it, what am I expecting?
Like a Smirnoff Spin, but like a watered
Okay.
down, healthy,
Okay.
very healthy.
Smirnoff Spin, is that still a thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you remember Moscow Mule?
Oh, yeah, Moscow Mule, dude. But Smirnoff Spin, oh my god, I got so smashed. You could funnel
Those were
Strawpedo, the
What was
shit out of that.
those were the best things to torpedo.
What was the
Brew.
first one? What was the one? It was
Red Square.
Storm or
What
Spin.
was the
Which
other
was
one?
the original one? Ice. Ice was
Mule,
the
I think
original
it was
one.
Moscow Mule.
Smirnoff Ice was the
Smirnoff
original.
Ice was the original.
And then they rebranded it.
And then they bumped up the alcohol to
Yeah.
like 6%. And then that
You
became
used to
Smirnoff
down
Storm.
those at Buena Vista.
Just to get, it's like.
Because there was not
three
much.
in the parking lot before you
Yeah.
go into the club.
What was that other one?
Strawpedo, let's go.
The Red Square or something?
Yeah, Red Square.
Like-
Oh
So
man.
it's like Red Bull and vodka.
No.
It was the same. Do you remember Hooch?
Yeah.
Hey? But that
Hooch.
Hooch used to have cool labels. Do you remember? They used to have those.
It was the
red-
fruits.
It was
that
the weird ass fruits that.
the the animated fruits that would start talking to you after you had a six pack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hooch.
No,
But
but
those-
back on that, I definitely think it depends on the trend. It's what people are drinking. I remember RPA.
Yeah.
I remember it was a whole stout kind of period.
Lately, there's been a lot of lagers coming back, light lagers, and everyone's doing a light something.
I still want Pilsner. Like to me, Pilsner is my style.
You're a
I love
Pilsner
it.
man, eh?
And
And
it's perfect beer.
like
Yeah.
people need to start making more.
There's only like 2 really good ones in this country. There needs to be more. There's
I mean,
definitely
CBC
room.
Pilsner is like my
No,
go-to
it
beer.
is.
Guys, there needs to be more of everything, more of every good beer style that you can think of. But obviously, there's not. I don't know if it's not enough brewers, but maybe it's brewers who not either being daring enough to make a unique style and go out of the core range that we've become so used to seeing when a microbrewery starts. And maybe the second thing is that maybe the brewers aren't on the international skill levels that we are, or that we come to expect when we taste a beer like this, when it's a few months past its expiry dates, but it's still
Yeah.
this is delicious.
It's really good.
Yeah,
There's not the aroma is is
Yeah,
So-
it's definitely
so-
not as
so-
hoppy
but
as
flat.
So to
the
your
taste
point,
is amazing.
Tony, I agree. I'd love someone who'd make a Pilsner or Quell clone.
Yeah, oof,
I mean, I'd be
in.
all over
I'm
that.
So in, yeah.
I would, but we plug it so much on the show. But the Pilsner from CBC is delicious. Yes, it's a Bavarian style Pilsner, but it's not a Czech Prague.
It's just more
sorry,
malt-
not,
malt
it doesn't
from
come
it.
from Prague. It comes from Pilsen, obviously.
But then you've got Darling's Blood Serpent, which is probably my favorite beer in this country at the moment. That's Pilsner.
Really.
And I think it's so good.
So at the moment, that's your favorite.
It's my favorite beer at the moment. I drink it more than anything. Like it's.
What have you done to Carl?
I love it. It's so good. It is so good. Like it's just in my opinion.
So it's.
But you want me to leave now?
No.
There's the door.
I love you, darling. It's not because we just did a cola.
So it's. I've been trying to get my head around this and the whole dynamic in terms of the consumer versus the brewer. Brewers saying people aren't drinking my beers, or no, they don't have people drinking my beers, and we said this on my show last week with Lucy. That I think what's brewers need to start investing. I'm talking in very general terms now, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm talking specifically with the South African brewers in mind. I think the brewers are trying to come up with new ways in terms of getting more consumers or customers through their doors or drinking their beers. And one of the things that we spoke about with Lucy was that they shouldn't be lowering their price or trying to make their beer cheaper. They should actually be making themselves better, making the beer better. And if you start making better beer and it starts to reflect, if you put more training into yourself and your staff, you start to see it in your beer. And I think I've started seeing brewers now who beers were shitty a few years ago, and they've started really getting a lot better now, and it's great because they're still going and they put the time and energy into getting better, and now it's justifiable it's justifiably so that you can charge 50 Rand for a pint in some places. I know up country it's like ridiculous, but if you're going to charge high prices for beer, it needs to be really good.
No, but that's the thing, and I think credit to Lucy. She's been banging this drum for years now, and the whole the what's it called, not the powwow, what's the one coming up?
Boot camp,
the beer boot camp, and she's written an article every year. She writes an article like why you shouldn't be missing out, and it's all true. Like South Africans have this mentality where you do a homebrew, you think it's awesome, then you go and start a brewery and you know everything.
Or you're part of a club.
Well, this is an elite club, so it doesn't count. We're outside of the scope. But it's like such a South African thing. I know everything there is to know. And there's so many of those people in this industry. And it's bullshit because you don't know everything you know. Otherwise, you would be handing over your beers. They would be all over the place, and you would never ever think twice to hand over a beer to someone. Do you think Wolfgang sits and goes, "Ooh, I don't know if this one's going to be off or not"? No, fuck no. He's like, I am German. I'm 12 years trained. This beer is flawless, and I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to enjoy it. And there's so few breweries that can confidently hand over a beer, and it's because they lack the training. You don't know everything. You really don't. You're so far from knowing everything. Yeah. And they're bringing out John Keeling, who's the Fuller's head brewer, for years. Like, it's like Obi-Wan coming, and you're like, no, it's cool, I'm not going to go. I know what I'm doing. Bullshit. You should be going. and who else? There's so many, like Pete Brown and Randy Mosher was here last year. Like, Michael, it's ridiculous. They bring out the best of the best, but you're not going to spend the money to go and upskill yourself.
Let's talk about this.
No, it's good. It's
but
right.
Ross, I know we're going a little bit further down the rabbit hole, but Ross, we were chatting yesterday about the boot camp and how these people that are coming out, they really are the rock stars of the beer world, of the craft beer worlds. But maybe you can tell us, what are we doing wrong in terms of, as from an outsider? Or I'm not saying you're an outsider, but give us
you're at the club. That was Swift on his birthday.
For someone who was previously in our club, what are your thoughts on that?
Excellent, chiming in.
This is a loaded question. I don't think that there's anything. I think looking from the outside into anything, whether it's the craft beer industry, which I'm fortunately kind of on the fringe, slowly bleeding into, or the art world, or the food world. I mean, Nikki's in, you know, cake and cake design and that sort of stuff. When you
What company does she work for?
what company does she work for? She doesn't work for any company. She
Oh,
has her
really?
own company.
I have my own one.
What?
And what company is this?
Lionheart, Sweet Lionheart.
Are you the guys from Sweet Lionheart?
Mhm.
Oh,
That your
my
Instagram
word.
account is unbelievable.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Beautiful
Disclaimer: do not go look at Sweet Lionheart's
don't,
Instagram if you are
don't.
hungry or at work.
Or drinking beer while
If you want to
we-
learn how to do buttercream, don't go. They
Just
do
don't go.
amazing workshops. Don't go.
But the thing is, you know, being on the like I said, the fringe of a lot of those industries, there are a lot of these workshops and you know, get-togethers that get put together, and you for someone who I think to myself, and I said to you, Carl, yesterday, like I think to myself, like, shit, I would love to have known about this, you know, this boot camp thing, because I would have been there, you know, like, oh, I definitely would have been there. But then, you know, thinking about it, I get there, it's all these names of people that I've never really heard of. I just haven't been into this thing as a hobby or
Sure.
as a career or whatever for long enough to know who the rock stars are. You know, if I get invited to some food thing and there are all these, you know, there's a list of names that everyone who's in the know of, or close enough to those people, or close enough to the industry to know who those people are, the big names. For me, I'm just like, you know, well, okay, that's all well and good, but, you know, it doesn't really mean anything to me. But back to what you were saying about the people that need to go to those things are exactly I think the brewers and the cake people and the artists, whatever, that think they know everything, because they've locally established a name for themselves, but they're not improving, because they're like, it's like anything.
Yeah.
You get good at one thing, you know, you don't have to be a sort of one trick pony, but you get good at this one thing and you just keep doing that, and then you're only playing to that small crowd that you initially started playing to, you know.
It's an attitude towards what you do as well. So it's like that intrigue and interest and wanting to learn more and wanting to improve. And like he's saying, Troy, like people having the attitude that they know everything. So like always be open to learning.
You've got to be the best people. The people are always learning. You have to be always learning. There's even the best people at anything are often humble. And the inspiration and information is at every turn. And if you think you know everything, and even Gordon Ramsay I think he's a very good chef, and even for as knob as he comes across, you watch those travel shows where he goes into the heart of some place, and like he'll go and learn something. And yes, I don't know how much of it is TV and how much of it is him really learning. Like he knows pretty much everything there is to know about food, but he'll still go and learn some weird thing in this weird place. You have to be open to those experiences. Otherwise, why are you bothering to do it?
You've got to teach as well.
Yeah.
And if you teach something, you automatically start to learn something else.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to.
Let's tie it back into beer. I think the issue which happens, which unfortunately a lot of the brewers have found themselves in now, is that they've kind of overshot the mark in terms of finance. They thought, cool, I need X amount for brewing capital, I need X amount for sales, marketing, if they've even given some of that thoughts. But there's been no extra finance in terms of future growth or future development.
Human development.
And it is unfortunate, but it is a fact that I see a lot of the brewers in South Africa where they complain like, oh, I'd love to do this, but I don't have the time, the resources in terms of staff or money to get to where I need to be. So I wish there was something I could do. I wish there was a magic wand that I could do in terms of like, cool, let's sort this out. But it is an unfortunate state that we're currently in terms of brewers not being able to go to these events. Or they should be sold out in my mind.
Okay.
But before I forget, when are we going to call our next beer One Trick Pony?
So when you said that, I was like, hey.
Actually, well,
What style would it be? Because it's a one trick. It would have to be one sort.
Well, it's just a single hop, single malt, because it's one.
And then we just except we don't use malt and we don't use hops. We use an alternative.
Yeah, exactly.
Hay bales. Hay bale filtered.
Sure. Let's get on to our next beer.
What did you guys
But
think
we
of that
didn't say
beer?
anything
Yeah, we
about
didn't
it.
We
say
said nothing about
we
that
didn't say
drink.
anything about it.
I
It was okay.
it was okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say it wasn't my
I
favorite.
prefer, the first one was
It
nice.
had a bit of a unique citrusy, fruity notes.
But
It's definitely not as hoppy as most
yeah,
IPAs.
I mean, for like an IPA, it felt
Well,
nice.
yeah.
Nikki, won't you read the label, please?
I love how you're handing this one to me. This one is called the Raging Bitch, with a
Oh,
damn.
mangy pup on the front.
Yes.
What
That-
style is it?
It's a Belgian Indian Pale Ale,
Oh,
and
that's,
it is
that's different.
8.3%.
Yo, big one.
How much?
8.3.
8 points.
In the
Gosh,
shade.
Your party's starting
And
now.
the back label.
Two of
just
those
starts
and
The
you're
with-
done.
IPA is kicking in nicely now, bro.
They say 2 inflammatory words, 1 wild drink.
Sure.
The inflammatory words being raging bitch.
Raging
Yeah,
is
bitch,
nuts.
yeah.
Okay,
That's a reach copywriter.
It's
Yeah.
like a vampire
Ooh.
monk.
Vampire monk.
Oh, wow.
Do you like me a little Belgian?
Oh, that sounds good.
Ah,
Colours.
Yeah, colours.
it's
Unreal.
lovely. It's lovely. Oh, that's good. There we go. Pour one out for Henny.
Sip for my homie.
Oh, don't pour on the mic. Yes, sir, that was close.
That's almost been on my
That
mind.
was almost in that hole.
Just save some for Uncle
Yeah,
I
Greg.
love how we're drinking American beers at the southernmost tip of
Yes.
Africa.
Thank you for
Where
having
are
us.
we?
Where are we?
Where are we? Is a
I don't
real
know.
What
Where
trick.
are
reserve is this? This is the
It's called Brandfontein.
Brandfontein. So
Nature Reserve.
is it's the most southerly park? Not game reserve.
Okay, preserve. Where?
It's a
There was a chicken
It's a
outside.
park.
nature it's a nature conservation area. So it's right at the tip of Africa, ladies and gentlemen. So
Southern
for our American listeners and maybe even some of the South African listeners, Cape Town or Cape Point is sometimes
Referred to as.
referred to as where the two oceans meet, but it's actually the Cape of Agulhas is the most southerly point of Africa, and we are in an old farmhouse built more than 100 years ago, and we have some hills on the left, we have some fynbos in front of us, and we have nothing but white, sandy, and rocky beaches on our right. We're inside today because it's a little bit windy, but it's the perfect weekend for drinking beer.
It is.
And before we forget, we must talk about what beer we have been drinking all weekend. But let's drink our Raging Bitch.
So, this raging
I
bitch has
like this
got it.
one.
Yeah.
It's better than
It's got that nice Belgian
It's
smell.
like
Danky.
little candy.
Yeah.
It's better than
Hey,
the.
it's got the little barnyard.
Unfortunately, I like Snake Dog, the name, but this one's better.
It's
Yeah.
more on the Belgian side.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's very Belgian.
It's got
It's
that
delicious.
candy vibe. Yeah,
Very
this is
rich.
good.
Do you think they chose these names, or maybe this one specifically, Raging Bitch? Do you think they did that for a little clickbait?
Probably.
Oh, maybe.
I wonder. It'll be interesting to see their stats on which one is the biggest seller.
I'm pretty sure it's that one.
I would
that's
say
anyone
Raging-
anyone that I know of this brand is Raging Bitch because it was on some TV show.
Well, out of these three, would you go back to that?
I'd probably go back to that one. I really like the orange one, but this one is this is good. But this is like, don't go anywhere. Just have a six pack.
But there are
and
few.
sit in a
There are
chair.
few breweries.
Signature and don't
Yeah.
get
There are a few breweries. One other one comes to mind is Stone, with that shock effect.
Yeah,
on
Stone
the
have been
label.
doing it for years. Yeah,
Like
arrogant
almost
bastard.
screw you guys. This is what we call our beer. And Raging Bitch does kind of have that shock effect. I'm trying to think if there's anything in South Africa that
No.
kind of offends.
We've got
People are
riots.
so scared to do
No.
that, and I wish people were more like, you know. The thing is, I think that our
What would
political-
you call what would your offensive label be?
I'm not an offensive guy, so I can't really think.
Come
of something.
on, you
I
see.
can, I can dig something up.
The
What
thing
about
is-
what you told me last night?
Yeah, I remember. I think it's this country we're so politically correct because, and also in the day and age that we're in, I'm pretty sure this Raging Bitch is being hauled over the coals so many times by
Yeah.
every social.
But there
justice
is a
warrior.
dog on there, so
Yeah, sure, fair enough. But the beer world is also notorious, especially the American beer world, is notorious for sexist labels, off-color sort of taste stuff, and I think this was probably a byproduct of. This was probably made a few years ago, like
Sure.
a couple. I would say
Before
10
the-
years ago, before the advent of
The woke.
the woke,
The
nation.
woke.
Go woke, go,
craze.
get woke, go broke.
Woke.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we haven't got anyone in this country. Riot is the only one who's got any sort of attitude.
Although, what did those actually? There was.
Oh,
one.
right.
Remember those guys?
Veil.
Was it the Veil?
Oh, that was some.
No, but that was crass.
Crass.
I'm not.
But that's shock value.
No, yeah, but that's like
I
I'm
think
talking
there's
about like arrogant bastard
If you
and
read-
raging bitch.
yeah.
That's like, oh wow, like
If you read the copy on the back of Arrogant Bastard, it's so well written. It's
Yeah.
so well written. It's like a whole paragraph about why you shouldn't drink this beer, and it's just really well thought out. Not
Bale was just
no,
stupid.
it was just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like
It was an
guava,
arrogance.
guava,
Oh,
ginger guava. It was like so bad. It was terrible. There's no thought behind it. Just like low-hanging fruit from a couple of
I think
wankers in
we are in
Joburg.
a country where you gotta just be careful what you say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing is,
Put on the bottle.
yeah, absolutely. Like if you're gonna have something that is of good quality, then you don't really need a nasty name to make it
No.
stick out.
No, you can have a funny name or an original name, or but to go into like territory that makes there's a way to make people feel uncomfortable without being like ooh, someone's going to say something. Can't wait for the Twitter post, like,
Yeah.
and that will happen.
But Troy, do you know this brewery? Do you know these beers? Like if I asked you where do these
I
guys
would say
stand?
these are internationally known. These are quite
it's a big one, man.
quite up there in terms of like if you had to show me this label, I'd be like, oh, that's that American brewery.
Okay.
So they do get a lot of exposure, and you do tend to see their label, their logo. Whenever you Google craft beer, and even if you Google craft beer labels,
Comes up.
That-
Right.
that
okay,
pops
so
up.
they're there.
so they've definitely done a good thing in terms of marketing. Let's talk about the second reason why we're here this weekend, apart from celebrating the birthday.
Oh yes, of course.
We made a special beer. Ross, do you want to tell us what kind of beer why did we make a beer?
Well, we made a beer for this weekend as the Cart Horse Group, and it's the third time we've made a beer specifically for a weekend, I think.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
this is the third time we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Nicky.
we were inspired by.
Get it?
I was definitely inspired by the Jet Black Heart by Brewdog.
So good.
I love that beer so
So
much.
good.
It's like definitely one of my favorites. So yeah, took one of those, or found the recipe and made it our own, I guess. Or how much was it our own?
What
did we tweak?
I mean,
I mean,
obviously, it's no secret that Brewdog, they give the recipe out in a DIY brewing recipe book. But I think what we had to do, we had to substitute some of the ingredients for something that was a little bit more locally available. So yeah,
But you nailed it though. Well done, T-Bone.
I think we nailed it. So it is a great,
It's a
great effort.
very good beer.
It was delicious.
I think it's one of our best.
Yes.
Yeah,
For me.
absolutely.
It's got nothing to do with Brewdog recipe.
This is the platinum winning.
Yeah.
And I do want to say to our listeners, but it is, I will say, if I can say it humbly, it is probably one of the better beers we've ever made because I'm surprised. It is delicious. It's a beautiful start. It's not heavy. It's very light. There's no acrid taste. I mean, when we first tried it out of the fermenter or out of the fermenter, it was a little bitter at the end, and we
It's sharp.
were worried that it was going to be too bitter, not sweet enough. But it's just this. Oh yeah.
Just
Yeah.
fucking
I'm
delicious.
gonna pat myself on the
No,
back
it's
one more
really
time.
good.
Because,
Listen, you
I love it.
There you go.
Thank
There
you.
you go. And I've drunk a lot of
Thanks,
Jet Black
guys.
Hearts, and you've drunk a lot of it.
Yeah,
it's,
this
it's
is-
so good.
This is good. That's really, really good.
And then we also some of the leftover beer we put in the. We added a little bit of wood chips into it, so
The bourbon.
suburban. So we're gonna
Suburban.
open that up in about
Is it
6
beer
months'
name?
time.
The Suburban.
I had a small taste of that.
Suburban.
It's. I also had a small taste. We need to wait.
It needs
another
to
6
wait.
months.
Yeah, it's good though, but it needs time.
There's
It's not
too
as
much.
bitter as this one.
No, it might
Too
be
much
more.
alcohol.
Actually, no. I
Bunch of
found this
bourbon
one
in
not
it.
as bitter. I found that one. But yeah, we'll see in 6 months.
Let's crack open the next beer.
Sure.
We're making
This
some
was
good time.
really good.
Yeah, this is so far this raging bitch. Ross, read the next one.
This one's called The Truth, and it has quite a bureaucratic-looking man in a lawyer suit with a green shirt, red and black tie, and a face that looks very weird. And on his shirt it says, well, on his jacket it says, "I do solemnly swear."
Whoa.
Imperial IPA, kicking off at an 8.7 ABV. So yeah, this could be quite.
It sounds like me.
So there you go.
It's pretty much Tony on the bottle. Yeah.
Open that damn thing.
Listen,
It says here, full disclosure, this beer came to fruition because we saw a gap in our portfolio and we wanted to increase our market share. Okay.
The truth.
Hence the truth.
8.7.
It's the truth.
It's big one.
Yeah, I must say that the labels are amazing.
Yeah, the beautiful little artworks.
Yeah, you can take that and. Is that the?
But that's because you paid an artist. You know,
Well,
that's
just-
another problem in this industry in South Africa. Luckily it's changed over the last few years. But geez, we went through a period a couple of years ago where there was so much like beers look like dog shit, and that is your first touch point as a consumer.
Exactly.
You're on the shelf. There's a reason.
Drink with your eyes.
There's a reason why Devil's Peak looks the way it looks. There's a reason why CBC is more classic. Devil's Peak always sort of push the boundaries, but you can't have your cousin's cousin, you know, who does coral draw or something, pulling together. It's the last hurdle, and you're gonna go and you spend all this money on equipment and ingredients, and then you put this piece of crap out there, and I'm not gonna buy it purely because it's ugly. That's a sad reality. That a lot
That's
of
what I
beers
said last
face.
time. We've got so many
Yo.
street artists and
Yeah, there's so much
we've got
good
talented
talent
people.
here, but people
Like,
don't want to
use
pay
them,
people.
Pay them.
Oh, we don't have any money. We'll pay you in beer. I mean, how many?
Yeah, man.
Like my beer
You
account
know,
is full.
yeah.
Exposure bucks.
I think it's such an excuse.
I pay my bills with them.
No, you can't.
So am I wrong in saying that this is quite similar to the previous one?
It's more dank.
This, you can smell this is a bit more fruity and chewy. It's got a bit more, maybe some mango. Sure.
Yeah.
Damn.
Kicks you.
Yes, that's like
It's actually it's a
That's-
lot,
that
lot more
is
better.
It's like a
than
fruit,
this.
it's a fruit juicy.
that's really good. That's really.
What's
It's like a
style is
medley of
this?
fruits,
Imperial.
kind of fruit juice that you get at served at those hotels or at the Spur.
It's like a spur.
Yeah.
This is really tasty. This is really tasty. Ooh.
I must say, I do fear
But it
Imperial
does,
IPA.
that is going to get you. Yeah, you had a bad experience.
I've had
Tony.
many.
Tell us about your Imperial IPA experience.
I don't know.
Imperial.
IPA
Yeah,
was
we've
10
had that
minutes.
on the show before.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Good beer.
It's nice. And I think when it's an 8.7% beer,
Wow.
you can forget about it, like some of us do, in the back of your fridge, and then bring it to a weekend away and drink it. It'll still be okay. So I'm not too upset about this.
Quite boozy though.
Well, yeah.
Like for IPA or Imperial IPA.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think our
You said
perception.
it tasted similar. It was you
Yeah.
to the Belgian, and I
Yeah.
agree because it's got that
Ask
booziness,
a question.
like,
Question.
like a Belgian.
Yeah,
Well, they're not that far.
You had a
off,
question before the show. I
It's
was,
seven.
I was trying to do that. But
No, that's just the wrong one.
Oh, sorry. The question. Oh, the question. If,
The question.
if
Yeah,
I
it-
ever wanted to like venture into the
Well, you
world of
want-
making beer and I don't want to make beer,
So Carl, we need your input here. So Ross's
I'm thinking of doing a like contract brew
Mm.
vibe, and I know you guys have done contract brewing.
Yeah, I mean, they're the worst people in the industry. Let's be fair. They're dirty, no skin in the game.
But how do you go about doing it? I mean, let's say I've got this idea for a beer, and I don't have the time or energy or
All you need is a recipe and someone you trust.
so I go to that guy and I say, you brew beer. Do you have a fermenter or a tank that you can brew my beer in it? We work together on the recipe, or you do the recipe, give it to them,
Yeah.
pay them, and
Yeah.
and then the cost is split.
Most places do it. I mean, Devil's Peak contract brews, Woodstock contract brews, Darling contract
obviously
brews.
certain sizes.
Yeah,
depending on where you
I
go.
mean, we did.
You're not going to go straight to Devil's
I mean,
Peak
we've
and
never-
knock on JC's door.
No, I mean, we did with.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice. We've done a bunch of collabs with a bunch of brewers, and like the big guys like Darling are like, he's like, the system is too big. The minimum we can make is 3,000. And I mean, 3,000 is a fair amount.
That's a ton.
And that was like, we were like, oh shit, that's a lot. I mean, when with Fraser, it was with Mood Coffee. I mean, it was 1,000, I think, at a time. So I think you got to find a brewery that works to suit your size or your pocket or however what your aspirations are for it. But I think it's a great way that people give contract brewers a lot of shit, and I was one of those people. Striped Horse came out, and I was like, it just felt like guys with money swooping in and having a brand that I don't think is the best looking brand in the world, but the beer is really good because it's made at CBC, so you can't fault the beer. But it just irked me because it was like you're cutting in and cutting people like Rory, whose heart and soul is into the thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of contract brew was irritating for me. I've kind of gotten over it now. But then you've got guys like Rob from League of Beers, and I'll never forget this. We were on Beer Country, and he had just released City Street IPA, which was from Big City Brewing Company, which was one of his things that he did a few years ago. And he's like, I don't have the money for a brewery. I don't have millions and millions, because it's millions. Even a small brewery, maybe not millions for some of the smaller guys, but it's an expensive thing to do. He's like, I don't have that money, but I have a recipe and I can go to someone who has a brewery. So why can't I? Why should I not do it because somebody says I should? Like bullshit. And he did that for years. Rob has done quite a few contract brewers, and they go into the League of Beers cases.
Still does it today.
As long as the beers are good,
Yeah.
and the brand looks good, and their intention is right. I think it's a great way for anybody who wants to brew.
Okay, cool. Well, that's my question answered. Thank you. Because I'm looking at doing it, and
You should
it's
do
probably
it.
going to happen.
I think
Good.
Carl's hit it the nail on the head there. But I think if I can add on stuff, it is a question of finding a brewer that you trust, and you trust the brand, what's coming out of their system.
Yeah.
I think it would be foolish to just go in blindly and just say, cool, you've got some space. I have never really drunk your beers, or I don't really like your beers, but let's just give it a whirl. I think that is a massive mistake. You need to actually find a brewer, firstly, who you love his beers, and secondly, if he's got capacity and he's willing
someone who gives a shit. Like, you need someone who gives a shit. You don't want some.
You want to be able to walk away and trust that they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
You want to, because as you've said, you don't have time to brew. You don't have time to go in every day to check the fermentation levels or what the temperature is. You want to be putting your energy into something like your marketing or your sales or whatever you want to do with that beer. So your time is valuable, and so you need to actually, it's almost like a partnership.
Yeah, but also have
You
something
need-
on paper,
and
an understanding of what's going to happen. If something goes wrong, like, you need to tick all those boxes, because you don't want to be, something goes wrong and it's like, oh, well, not my fault. It's not who you got to pay for it. Like, have something, an agreement and understanding. Have something.
Yeah.
It also depends on how big you want to go off the bat. I think for me, it's going to be very small. Just check it out.
What do you want to do with it? What is your goal?
Well, for me, I just want a beer brand. I
Why?
would love my own
Why?
beer brand
Why?
because I like branding, I like marketing, and I love beer, but I don't have the time. I know the difference between a good and a bad beer. I think I've spent enough time with you, Focus, to know what a good or bad beer is. And we've been brewing beer, and I think that's definitely inspired me to want to be part of the industry a little bit more. Not to, I don't have this like goal of taking over or becoming the biggest contract brewer of whatever. It's just it just feels good to be more a part of it, and how cool must it be to say, fuck, I've got my own beer label.
It's pretty cool.
It's like, it's a fucking cool thing.
But what's nice is, like, most of the guys, when you do start out, the starting small is also key. You don't want to start with 1,000 liters, because
it's tough, man.
And I don't care who you are, but a lot of sometimes the mentality is like, oh, that's fine, we'll just keep it in our garage and we'll sell it to our friends, or we'll just give it.
It
at a
doesn't
price.
work that way.
Please, if you're thinking about that, take that option out of your head. You need to start small, and you need to have the minimum amounts, and then scale it up as you go. You need to dip your toe in the water slowly. Yeah. Because
you don't want to end up with
a lot of time, and this goes to the commercial guys who buy into a brewery and want to do the whole thing. They get a big fright.
Yeah.
When the door slammed down.
It's very easy to make something. It's very hard to sell something.
But you know what?
And that's what we've learned over the years. Is you can make a beer. Oh, everyone's gonna buy it. It's gonna be fucking amazing. It's very hard to sell shit, and a lot of places have agreements with places, and a lot of guys, no names, mentioned, will swoop in and then they buy the taps, and it's like a dirty game. And I guess you got to figure out what you want to do. Are you going to be like Citizen, who's only on tap? So I don't even know if Citizen is still going. I think they are. They're only on tap.
Don't ask me.
Yeah, I spoke to Gary recently. I think, as far as I know, it's only on tap. I mean, he's a really good example of a contract brewer who did it right. Citizen looked good, it sounded good, they were on tap, they could buy the bottles, and it had that cool edge to it. They were in all the cool places.
It goes both ways, even for a brewer. If someone's going to come to them and they want to make a beer, they got to trust them. So it definitely goes both ways, and it's got to be clear. It's got to be transparent. People got to know this is your responsibility, this is my responsibility, and put it on contract. And
Dion Bing, he's another good example. Eh? Dion Bing's Brew, that's been around for a couple of years now. Dion Bing from one of the radio stations. Yeah,
Used to do the surf report in
yeah,
cafe.
he still does it. I think. Well, he's brewed at Woodstock, and he's got his out for ages.
Sorry, just on the sales side, I mean, Nikki and I, with your trying to get one of your products out. I mean, tell that story.
You're going like door to door. We spent 3 days driving around Cape Town, Western Cape area,
Selling what?
trying to sell cookies.
Oh, really?
Trying to get our cookies into places.
It's hard, eh?
It's
Beautifully packaged little
Yeah.
sample packs.
It's super tough, and I mean, of the 30 places that we went to, I think maybe 2 people were like, "Cool, let's do it."
The
But-
same thing with crew list. Just drive around until someone bites.
And
It's tough,
yeah,
man.
It's like trying to like get a new job. You send your CV
Yeah.
out to so many places, and like maybe one will
Yeah,
bite.
yeah.
For an interview.
We normally preempt it. We send in the trailer for the show because that's like us. Like even though it's like 5 years old, we're like, "Yo, we did the show, man!" And they're like, "We used the price for us," and they're like, "Wow, it looks so cool. Yeah, we'll take some." I'm like, yeah. What's got this book?
Yeah.
But it is once you have that
It's-
material
it's-
to back you up.
You've got to
then
have
it's
something to get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's
yeah, but it doesn't stop. You got to keep going.
No, you've got to keep going. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Maybe
Don't
you
get
can do
disheartened.
100, you
No,
get 5.
absolutely. But your stuff is like no bullshit. Your stuff is amazing. Like you are in the top, if not the top bakery in Cape Town or South Africa, and
Number 1.
number one. And no, it's true. So it's just and you guys have an
Do you
amazing
deliver
following.
nationally?
No, we don't.
Just Cape Town
Just to
area.
Cape Town, yeah. But also, like what I wanted to say earlier when Troy was talking about like the brewers maybe not pushing the boundaries of what they're doing, I can relate from the perspective of like what we're doing. We're trying to be very innovative with our flavors and our product offerings, but there is also a very small amount of people in South
Yeah.
Africa that have the buying power to buy our products.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we don't fall necessarily in the same space like as beer necessarily, but you do also
It's
have
a luxury good almost.
yeah, and like not everyone is going to spend their money on something that they don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, I think in South Africa, people are becoming a little bit more adventurous, so we can push the boundaries as businesses and small startups, but it does take time.
Yeah.
So we are catching up.
Also, you've got to develop people's palates.
Yeah.
People often stick to what they know, what they grew up with, the flavors they like, and then like salted caramel wasn't a big thing a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden it exploded. And
But
now,
it's never leaving either.
no, it's never going. It's never,
Everyone just wants
Everyone
salted
wants
caramel,
caramel. It's
right?
like, that's
I'm like,
crazy.
okay.
No, but and that's the way. I mean, going back to the whole trends thing, and it's like, but you got to find that next thing. What is that
Yeah.
next thing? I don't know. Go with what works.
Well, the next thing on our list.
Hey, this was really good. I like this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
I
beer.
do just want to, Tony, do you mind calling Greg?
Well, I'll do that.
Let's think about that.
Tell him we want him.
That was lovely.
So we can just wait. Yeah.
I'll never forget when we went on Brewmaster, because everybody was trying to do all this crazy shit and be like shitty, and they're like, and Baptist Bassan, he said to us, he said, cook what you like and cook what you know is good, and stick with things that you know work, like tomato and basil. It's a classic. I mean, we had it last night for dinner. It's a classic combination. It's delicious together. If you start messing around with all these weird things and putting them together because you think it sounds good, you're gonna fail. And a lot of breweries, we have a lot of weird beers coming out that don't stick, and then it's like a good idea on paper until you try it.
Yeah.
Like at the last Woodstock Winter Beer Fest, there was a lot of those beers where it's awesome because there's so many cool beers out there, but then you taste something and it's like it promises so much. And I never forget this. We tanked on the first challenge so bad, and Greg and I were the leaders of the whole. We had 2 teams split up on Brewmaster, and we were the idiots that said we'll take it, we'll take the mantle of leadership, and we fucked it so royally.
What did you try and make? Or what did you have to make?
It's a long story, but we had to paddle down the Orange River for like 8 hours. They don't show you all that stuff, so by the time you get there, you're like ragged and the gears is gone. But in the morning at like 5 a.m, you only had like 3 minutes to get all the stuff that you needed for the next that afternoon into a cooler oxidation. I go on it. It was a lot more extreme back in the first days of Brown Master. And we hauled all our shit down there and we started cooking, and everyone was throwing out ideas, and it's like pineapple carpaccio, and it was just such an abortion from start to finish. and there was Greg almost got into a fight with a guy, and it was just so cuck, and it was because people were trying to do things that they like. It was a good idea on paper, and then when you try to do it, it was just a bad idea. And a lot of beers say that. Like Bass has still said to me, he's like, "Oh, you guys promise all these things, grilled pineapple, this and this and this," and in my brain I'm going, "Ooh, my flavors, this is going to be amazing," and then I eat it and it tastes nothing like any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I find with a lot of those beers at the Woodstock Winter Beer Fest, not your guys' one, because you did deliver on the peanut butter water with the cookies, but there was like, some guys was like, "Oh, it's this, it's orange, it's this and that," and you drink it, it's like, is it really? Like, I don't think you nailed it, but you made it, so you're putting it out anyway.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't refine it, or you didn't.
Yeah.
That's the worst. I hate that when something says something and then you're like, "Oh, I'm not really getting it."
And that's why with the labels as well, like there's a full circle that needs to happen with, you know, from the moment, especially if you want to, I mean, that goes into the marketing world, but if you walk into a bottle store and you're like, what am I going to have today? If you see a label that you've never seen before, like when I go into Ruland, I don't look at the stuff, I don't look for the stuff that I know. The first thing I look for is new beers.
Yeah.
Stuff that I haven't seen. I'm like, okay, cool. Jeez, what is this? And now I'm like, hey, Munya, what is this? Yeah, rather don't.
Not that one.
You know,
No,
it's
not
like,
that one.
it's like, no.
But isn't that sad? Like,
No.
I would love when we actually get to a place where you can go, whichever one you pick is going to be good.
Yeah.
Because I've been burnt, you've been burnt, we've all been burnt so many times, and it's expensive lessons where you go and buy something like, I'll give it a go, and as soon as you crack it, if it doesn't like fly through the roof, it foams over, you're like, oh man, and eventually you get like despondent. And then you just reach for the CBC Pilsner because I know it's going to be flawed.
Exactly, but
And
that's it.
And it's such a, and I never wanted to crush your spirit because you were there a few months ago. You were buying everything,
I was taking
and we were like,
everything,
"What do you think?" I'm like, "Just get it, man. You tell me what you think."
You tell us.
And then so it's like drain pour after drain pour, and then luckily that's lessened over the years. But we all got to go through that. But I want to get to that day where you can go pick anything.
Yeah. Where you can actually, or if somebody rocks up to Cape Town or Joburg or whatever, you say, go to that bottle store.
Yeah.
Because everything that they have there is just amazing.
I mean, we went to Radio Corp. You went there, the Radio Corp Tops. Didn't you go there the other day in Joburg? Was it you?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
It's amazing. It's a Spa Tops, but it's run by this guy, Brian. He's super passionate, and they've got this incredible collection of craft beer. And I bought a couple of ones up from Joburg, and unfortunately, a couple of them weren't great. You know, like really not great. Hey, you back? Hello. Are you winning?
Yeah,
Live.
dude, we won.
Smelling good.
How's the lamb going?
Yeah, lamb's good.
Come sit
Lamb's
here.
good. Oh, can I sit next to you?
Sit next to me.
Do you want to swap?
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just had the captain of Cartos step into the reins.
Vice captain.
No, keep it on, keep it on. Tony's not sure. But we saved you some beer, but you're going to have to play a little catch up. But before you...
Well, someone had to cook the bacon and the lamb.
Someone
Bruce.
had to cook.
Someone had to make sure
It's gotta eat
that Ross's birthday supper is all taken care of and everything. So
Let's
we're good.
We're wrapping up the show. We've had a lot to talk about, but we've got one more beer, which is I've just seen it. It says a limited release, and it's so new that I don't even know if it's...
The press packs have just gone
The
out.
press packs have just gone on.
Commercially available.
So I think by the time people listen to this podcast, it will be available.
It was on tap though at the
tap room.
The festival, whatever the ones we went to. The one was that one.
Woodstock one?
no,
the Jack Black.
it's your Jack Black Winter Warm Up Fest.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the Wolves of Winter, an
Ow.
oatmeal stout.
It's in our gravy. Thanks, Matt. From
What would the cart horse alternative be?
probably a better version, eh?
Horses. Horses of
Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep. Ooh, I like
I
that.
just watched
Horses
Lord
of
the Rings.
Horses of Heaven.
Horses
Whoa,
of Heaven.
whoa, that's some theory.
hell.
Shit. Oh, no, yeah.
Horses
let's go
from
with
hell.
Hell sounds like more
So
fun.
we can do two versions.
Yes.
We also, Greg, while you were away, we
we-
were discussing what our one-trick pony would be.
Yeah.
So we did it differently this time. We came up with the name first,
Yeah.
and then decided how we were going to kind of retrofit
Should it not be
that
like
with
a light lager?
Listen, I'm all for a light lager. That was the first beer. You know when we started Cartos,
Tony said to me this morning, I'd really like to make a lager or something. And I said,
It's hard though, isn't it?
Under no circumstances am I or any of us are going to attempt to make a lager.
But we don't have the facility.
You have to buy a whole new cooler.
No, we don't. If anyone wants to fund the club, we'll make one.
Dude, I would say that if we had to do a one-trick pony, it would have to be a smash beer.
No, that's what Ross said.
That's what I said.
That's what I said.
Single up,
Single. You know?
And then I said,
Excellent.
instead of using malt,
Smells good, man.
you'd use a different sugar source, and instead of using hops, you'd use
Agave.
It's molasses.
Ooh, I like molasses.
Blackstrap.
Molasses and bread.
Blackstrap molasses. That
It's
just
really
sounds good as well.
That
Eh?
sounds good as heck.
Is it? That's like.
I bought some molasses from Nature's Choice or whatever those brands are. Honey oats and molasses bread. Very tasty.
So, oatmeal stouts. Let's see if this is as good as the.
I think it smells really good.
It does smell
as
delicious.
the
It
Cartos.
smells really good.
I did have it.
It's got a bit of a roasty
Almost
cocoa
as good as-
coffee.
That's
Wanna
really
check something
tasty.
here quickly. What have we got?
It's like a
in
deep dark chocolate, 85% Lindt kind of vibe.
here? Yeah.
I think this is one of the better beers they've made in
Yeah.
ages.
That's.
I can't wait to stand next to a fire and drink this. You know, with some smoky lamb.
So can I ask something? The Cartos beer, the Jet Black Heart that we made, or Jet Black.
Jet black rice.
Jet Black Rice.
Yeah.
Is that? Did we use wheat malt at all?
I can't recall. We might have used a little bit.
We might have used everything that was left in the malt bucket. Because
We
it
did.
had a big malt bill. I think we used.
I was
everything that
was
there.
very happy that we were able to use some of our older
It's really,
grains
really
that have been
tasty.
sitting there. This is a lot more
Aged
sessionable.
grains. Aged grains.
This is when you look at oatmeal, you kind of think, oh, it's gonna be a bit of a thick start. I'm gonna have it's gonna be a little bit hearty. But this is
Nice mouth.
it definitely does have that oatmeal taste, but it's not thick. It's more
And
lighter.
do you think that there's possibly some lactose in there because it's got that sour bend? at the end?
No.
Not.
Oats, no lactose. Barley, wheats.
And they would have to put lactose on.
Oats.
there.
Well, it would be an oatmeal milk stout.
Ah, okay.
I really like
good
it.
observation.
I've gotta say,
Yeah.
and I also like the bottle. I think it's
This is-
awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Label's cool.
Who the wolves?
I don't know. AB InBev. Who bought them? Heineken. The Heinekens of winter.
Okay, so favorite beer for the day.
Sure.
Shit, I'm gonna go with this one. Sorry.
Are you?
Yeah.
Sure, man. For
Really?
me, it's Raging Bitch
Oh,
and
so
Truth.
Dude, I've only had the one, but I mean, I've also had the 4 others at the price. So I'll do, it's,
But I do think this
it's
is
been
very
good.
tasty. And I love the start, so it speaks to me.
I know. I've also got a bit of a soft spot for stouts and Jack Black. So if it's we haven't spent much time on it, but it is.
How long has it been since you got fired from Jackman?
This is a recording.
I'll tell you what, they
No,
they-
just
they-
wait. Some people will take that seriously. I wasn't fired. I left.
Ah, okay.
I
Pursue
gave
other
my-
options.
I
huh?
gave my month's notice,
Okay.
and that's actually, believe it or not, when I started #beertime.
Ah, you just left to fulfill the dream.
And look at us now,
Yeah,
And
here we are.
killing it in the
Serendipitous, eh?
southernmost point of Africa.
just raking in the money.
They should sponsor your podcast.
Well, look, I do still get press drops, and when it's a press drop, it usually involves beer. So
Yeah, luckily we
It's-
still get press drops. We're not over the hill just yet.
Yeah, it's
I
close.
still have some influence.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
This
thanks,
is-
Matt from Jack Black and Ross.
Yeah.
Cool, guys.
That was really good. I felt like we went deep.
We did touch some stuff. So I think Tony's buggered off, but
He's like, I'm done with this shit.
Done.
So yeah, you got the super sun. Sorry, guys.
I think we're done here. Is there anything else we want to talk about? Ross, are you having a good birthday so far?
I am. It's not often you get to do a podcast on your birthday followed by a whole bunch of beer that you've made. Although we finished that beer. Eh?
We might.
we got another whole keg of
Oh, we got another whole cake.
Proceed.
Which is great.
Of
And,
just
and having a meal prepared
Well,
by beer country
just
themselves.
Let's just. I want Greg to maybe finish off on that. That'll be the last thing we talk about. But Greg, what's only because Carl's been talking non-stop.
shit. Sorry, man.
Greg, what's
Turn it up, yeah.
What have you prepared for Ross's birthday? What's cooking outside?
Well, it is it's a Sunday, so we figured a Sunday roastish kind of thing, but we'd give it a beer country spin. So we've got about 6 or 7 different cuts of lamb, legs and shoulders and ribs and hands, knees, knees and elbows or whatever it is, inside the smoker.
A smoker?
Yeah, in the States they call it an ugly drum smoker. Or redneck smoker.
Like a drum.
Like a 220-liter drum.
Okay.
There's fire in the bottom, vented at the top, and about 4 hours. So that's been in there for a while.
Where does the meat sit?
A little bit of cherry wood, a little bit of apple wood.
Yeah, cherry wood and apple wood, that's good. A little bit of a light smoke. But the meat hangs on 2 cross beams.
Wow.
Just in there, and you put the lid on and you forget about it for 4 hours and go off and drink beer and record podcast and cook crispy bacon in pans and everything like that.
What else
the kitchen,
we
the
got
kitchen
some
smells good.
sides.
Yeah, what are the sides?
We're doing crispy smashed baby potatoes.
You were in a state last night. You said we're going to have 12 sides.
I was a bit drunk. I'm not gonna lie. We started early yesterday. Let's be fair. We tested the keg at like 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Playing those over earlier in Cape Agulhas.
Sure. So we're
doing crispy smashed baby potatoes with herb butter. We're doing bacon sweet potatoes that are baked.
Bacon butter sweet potatoes that we learned how to do at
Maceborskadam by the Tunnies. They taught us.
A little bit of side salad because we like to keep everyone honest.
Sure.
And I don't even know if there's sourdough left. I think
there's a loaf.
There's one loaf.
We can
One
make
loaf
some
of sourdough.
something with it.
And then there might be, I heard a vicious rumor.
What?
Something afterwards from Sweet Lime Heart.
Well, I was going to say, we didn't do no dessert. So
snap.
there better be salted caramel in there.
So I feel like we should apologize to our listeners because they
Now we're just rambling.
they're just licking their lips now, like God damn it. But let's call it a day. So let's thank the fine gentlemen of Kartos. Ross, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Carl, Greg, it's always a pleasure. Tony,
Thank
who's
you,
not
man.
here, who's left us to go do
It was
some
awesome.
duties. Thank you. And to Madam Nikki, thank you for having us. And I hope we're invited back.
You're the
next year.
first girl. No, we had Lucy. Or you had Lucy.
Well, this is the
You're the first.
third girl for the month, Women's Month.
What?
T-Bone
look at
has
you
thought
go.
about this, eh?
Oh, you don't listen to the podcast.
I did.
It's Women's Month. So,
I only fast forward to when I'm on, and then I just ignore the rest of it.
so to all our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. We've had a fun podcast, and we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys again soon. Ciao.
Yes. Yeah, it's nice. Eh? It's so much better than the other one.